What's going on, guys? It's the Dirt Bike Channel podcast. This is March 24th when I'm recording this. No idea when this will get out onto YouTube and podcast land, but maybe even tomorrow or today, I don't know. And I think I might try to upload this one to YouTube as well, because I think this might be an interesting podcast topic for a lot of people. I've had a few people request that I do this podcast, which is dirt bike trip preparation. Specifically, the last person to request it was Mike. Mike, you know who you are. Mike K. And so I'm going to talk about dirt bike trip prep. We're going to talk about how I prep for trips, just like a day trip, like a one-day thing, and also how I prep in general terms for multi-day trips, like if we're going out for multiple days in a row. So I'm going to break it up into those two things. First, we're going to talk about just like the day trips, the shorter things. That's like if you're just going to go out on a ride with yourself or your buddies for a day. Maybe it's, less than a couple hours from your house. Sometimes we'll even drive as much as 4 hours one way for a day trip, although I don't like to do that. If it's going to be 4 hours one way, I'd rather turn it into a multi-day trip or at least an overnight stay camping or a hotel or something, because it's just really hard to, you know how it is. If you drive, and we've done this before, like if you are going to, say, drive for 4 hours, and then ride for anywhere from 4 to 6, 7 hours out on the trail, and then get in the truck and drive back. Those make really, really long days. And, excuse me, those are not nearly as fun in my mind when I have to do that much. So, and everyone's different. You're in different situations. I live here in Utah, and we have a lot of different riding locations, but you have to be willing to drive a little bit. We'll drive anywhere from... Most of the riding that I do is at least an hour from my house. Sometimes I can ride closer to my house, and I can ride closer to my house, but you know how it is. It's always the grass is green on the other side of the fence. I like to have variety, and so I like to go out and do quite a bit of driving. And then each year we'll do 1, 2, maybe 3 trips where it's kind of like a multi-day trip, and it might just be a 2-day trip, like we ride and then we stay overnight in a hotel and then we ride the next day, or it could be a couple of days out there, 2 or 3 days. And so we'll just plan some different things, and those are really fun. So we'll get into those separately here as we go through it. But let's start out with just the dirt bike trip prep for a single day. And I've got some notes. I've spent the last 20 minutes or 30 minutes here just kind of thinking about some of the things I've done in the past and brainstorming on and putting some notes down. So I would say that your day trip ride preparation usually begins... At first I was thinking preparation kind of begins the night before, and it does, but I want to back up just a little bit, because the preparation for my next ride started when I was putting my bike away from the last ride. What do I mean by that? Like the last time I went out with the boys and stuff, we broke some parts. And so when we're cleaning up the bikes after the rides, we kind of make a list of like, oh, we need to do this, this, and this, which reminds me right now, I need to place an order with Rocky Mountain ATV. If you guys check down in the show notes or check my website, if you order parts from Rocky Mountain ATV, please, please, please use my links, because that is a way that does support my family. You get your parts from Rocky Mountain ATV. It doesn't cost you anything, but I get a referral bonus for helping send you there, and I buy most everything that I can for my dirt bike from Rocky Mountain ATV, because I can get it free shipping free 2-day shipping with orders over $75. And where I live in Utah, it's generally like next day. So if I order it today before about 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, I will usually have those parts and that gear at my house the next day, free shipping. So on those rides, my preparation for my next ride starts right after the ride that I just completed, because maybe I'll need tires, I bent a lever, maybe I'll need to get a fender or something like this. Maybe I need new grips or something. And so you just kind of do an inventory right then. You place those orders for those parts, you get them during the middle of the week, you put them on the bike, and then we can start talking about our trip prep for the day trip, which is, a lot of times, the night before is when I really start to pack things up and start to get prepped. So when packing all my gear in the truck, when I've got all the gear in the truck, I kind of do a level set for just a minute there, and I mentally get dressed head to toe so that I don't miss anything. So I will put eyes on my boots, and I will just go all the way through. And I try to just go systematically. I either start at the helmet or the boots. So let's say I start at the boots. I will look around in my truck, in my gear bag or whatever it is, and be like, there are my boots. and these are the socks I'm going to wear, and then this is the base layer I'm going to have underneath, and then those are my riding pants, and then moving up, oh, here's my base layer for my top, or even knee braces. Before I get to that, I'm like, okay, I got to have my knee braces on with my knee guards, and then I get up to my torso. Where is my base layer for my torso? Where are my jersey? And sometimes I'll wear 2 or 3 jerseys as like layers, instead of wearing jackets. So I go through all that. If I need a jacket, if the weather's going to be bad or whatever, I'm going to bring that jacket, a packable jacket or something. Where's my chest protector with my neck brace? Where's my helmet? Where are my gloves? Where are my goggles? I literally look and put eyes on every one of those things because it's so easy to forget something. We're wearing so many different pieces of gear that it's super easy to forget something. So I will literally just go through, take a minute and look and make sure I've got eyes on all of those things. Because if you get out to the trailhead and it took you an hour to get there and you don't have your helmet, your day is toast. And we don't want that. So I do that level set of my gear. Basically, I get mentally dressed head to toe every time so I don't miss anything. Another trick is to just have your gear bag that's fully stocked with multiple sets of gear, multiple sets of gloves. And that way, even if somehow in the wash that you did during the week, let's say you dropped a glove somewhere as you were coming out, and so now you only have one glove, your left glove. We're not going to be Michael Jackson here. We're not just going to do it with one glove. We've got a backup set in the gear bag so that we can just grab it there and go when you're out at the trailhead. Here's another thing. Check tire pressure. Dudes, every time you ride your bike, I don't care if you use tubes or tubeless. If you use bibs, you don't need to worry about this, but let's check tire pressure every time. We want to know exactly how much air pressure is in our tires. We don't want to run too much, and we don't want to run too little. That's a whole nother podcast maybe for talking about how much pressure you should run. It's going to depend on the system that you're using, tubes versus tubeless and tires and those things, but make sure you find out what works for you, what's good for you, and check tire pressure. One of the tricks that I do a lot of times is, because I want to check the tire pressure that morning or even at the trailhead. At the trailhead is even better. And so a lot of times I'll put more pressure than I need the night before. So I'll go out to the bike and I'll put like 20 or 30 PSI in, because a lot of times with my tubeless, I'll lose air, a little bit of air overnight. And so I'll put more air in my tires than I need. And that way, the next day when I get to the trailhead, I'm just letting air out. It's super fast to let air out of the tires. I also make sure I bring a bike pump, like a floor bicycle pump that I can just put pressure in my tires in the low pressure air or the high pressure air side, because I generally run tubeless. So bring one of these pumps, but if you've put too much air in, or you've put more air than you need, is what I should say. If you put more air than you need in the tire the night before, then at the trailhead, you're just letting a little bit of air out, and it's super quick. If you need to check your air forks, that's the time I do it there too. So make sure you've got a way to check the air in your air forks. Bleed your forks if you can. Put it up on the stand, put the bike on the stand. So you're going to have some tools. A dirt bike stand is going to be good. Some of these things that you can do to get your bike set up right there at the trailhead. I guess you could do that at the track too. If you're a track guy, that'd be a good place to do it. Topping off fuel at home. A lot of times I'll top off fuel at home, but if you do that, if you top off fuel, sometimes depending on how far you have to go and how much bouncing there is, you might lose a little bit of fuel out of your overflow, and it could like drop down onto your truck bed. If you're using like a moto van or something, maybe you don't want to top it all the way off inside, because then if that gas can be sloshing around in top of your motor, sloshing around in the tank inside your van, and then it'll drop out the overflow. So maybe you'd want to just carry a gas can, have that thing sealed up, and don't fill your tank all the way to the top. For me in the truck, it's not really a big deal. Some leaks out, but every once in a while I'll do it at the trailhead. And that brings another question. Are you going to do 2 loops? If you're going to do like one loop and then, like 2 different loops, I would say bring gas with you, bring gas in a gas can, because you never know what's going to happen out there. When you come back to the truck, I always like to leave with a full tank of gas. I'd rather do that. I feel better about doing that because you never know what's going to happen. We had a situation where one time we had to go off and do kind of like a little search and rescue thing. And so we needed to go back to the truck and then load, with fuel back up and go back up and try to find one of our other riders. So you never know. So it's good to have, fuel at the bike in the trailhead. Other thing, make sure you have a clean air filter in your bike. So I don't care whether you're running a 4-stroke or a 2-stroke, you want a clean air filter in the bike at the start of the day. It doesn't always have to be pristine clean, especially if you're not going to go into a dusty situation. Maybe you're going to go riding alone and you're going to hardly be eating any dust. So it doesn't have to be like the cleanest thing ever, but we want it to be clean. You need to be able to see the color of your oil, and you need to be, if there's words on your filter like twin air or uni filter or whatever, you want to be able to read those words. If you can't read those words, you should be changing that filter. Okay, so these are some of the things I'm checking. The other thing you want to make sure that you have with you is a riding pack with water, tools, snacks, maybe your cell phone, and some way to possibly like a GPS communicator. Right now, I use the Garmin InReach. I don't think I have it here, but where's my riding pack? My riding pack is over there on the ground. Anyway, I use a GPS communicator. It's the Garmin InReach. I pay a monthly subscription so that I can do 2-way text messaging over satellite. And that helps, ease, my wife's concerns and also just a good thing to have. You never know if you're going to be in an area where you're not going to have cell phone service. So it'd be a good way to have a backup way to communicate. Extra tie downs in the cab of the truck. So I will do this a lot of times. I've heard about this happening to people where people's tie downs get stolen out of the back of their truck. Some people are concerned about ramps being stolen out of the back of the truck. I have never had this happen, but I think it is a good idea to bring an extra set of tie downs just in case something happens to yours and throw those in the cab of the truck. Do you have your ramp? Do you have your dirt bike ramp? Obviously, you probably loaded your bike with the ramp, but I've seen times where we have, this has happened to me when I ended up at the trailhead without a ramp, and so you want to check for those types of things. Video, do you have your video camera, like your GoPro or your Sony camera? Like I use the Sony FDR X3000, the thing that I'm holding up right here, this action cam. This is the one that I use. I make sure I have extra batteries if I'm going to bring a drone with me, which some of the time I do. Some of the time I've got other cameras. I make sure I have extra batteries for those. Another trick that I do is I have a hard time sleeping, especially nights before rides. And so I'll load up my bike and all the gear in the truck the night before so I can sleep better. Because a lot of times these trips are happening early morning. Like I might be waking up at 5 a.m. to go ride or something. And so it just makes it easier if you have to leave at 6 a.m. If everything's already loaded up in the back of the truck, that can be a real game changer for you. And now maybe you won't pull your tie down super tight because you don't want to have too much pressure on your forks overnight. But the point is you can put it in the back of the truck and then just tighten things up in the morning and go. Or if you're loading your bikes the way that I am a lot of the times now, it doesn't matter. You've got it tied from foot peg to foot peg and then the corners of your truck, and it's tight and it's not even putting hardly any pressure on the suspension. So those are some things that I do. And then in the morning, sometimes like I typically am wearing base layers now. Like I've been using like fly racing base layers on my legs and my torso. And if I can remember to do it, it's kind of nice to be able to put those base layers on in the morning, like before I leave, because they're generally moisture wicking and it isn't going to be too hot. So I'll put that base layer on in the morning before I leave, so I'm not naked at the trailhead in the morning. Sometimes it's really cold, and I've been wearing the base layers even in the middle of the summer because it helps to protect my knees and stuff from my knee braces and things. And it's just one more layer of protection when you go down and take a digger. And then my last tip for these day trips is to just put some deodorant in your truck. And maybe an extra pair of underwear or something for the ride home in case you're completely soaked or just way, way dirty. You can, hide behind your door or something and put on some fresh underwear. It's so much nicer to put on a fresh pair of underwear and have a little deodorant in your truck, in the back seat of the truck or whatever for the end of these rides. Obviously, it would be nice if you had some water, some hydration back at the truck. If you had the ability to have a cooler, to have like a Pepsi or a Gatorade or a cold water or something like that, that would be obviously kind of cool too for some of these day trips, right? And then I just come back and I wash everything and start it all over. So that would be my dirt bike trip prep for like a single day trip. So let's move over to multi-day trips. Now multi-day might just be 2 days, it might be 3 days, it might be 4 days, it could be a week. The preparation for a trip like this generally starts at least a couple of weeks ahead, but it might start as much as, 6 months ahead to reserve lodging or something like this. Some of the time when we've done it, a lot of times we'll go in groups, and I'll get into the groups down here in just a minute. But we'll rent a house like on Vrbo or VRBO or Airbnb or something like this, and it's pretty economical when you've got like a larger group of people, and it's nicer in my mind to, like, if you got 4 guys and you can go rent a house for, you say, $300 a night or $400 a night, you split that up. If it's $400 a night for that house and you've got 4 guys, then that's $100 a night. I understand you can do that cheaper in hotels sometimes, but having a house where you've got, maybe you've even got a garage where you could put the bikes in at night. Let's say you don't have an enclosed trailer or something like this. If you can rent a house or a cabin and you can split the cost with people, it means it makes things a lot more comfortable sometimes. So you just kind of have to figure that out, whether you're going to camp, because camping is like a legit thing. You could do camping, or you could do hotels, but you're going to have to think ahead for the lodging. And before I get into any more on these multi-day trip planning, I would say that know that things will go wrong. They will. And you're not going to be able to follow your plan. So just be prepared for that, and just count on that as part of the adventure. One of the reasons we're doing these multi-day trips is just for the adventure of it, to get out there and to decompress from our stressful lives and see the world and have an adventure. And it's going to be an adventure. And so, like, if you get a flat on your truck, or you crash the bike, or you guys get lost, or there's a major rainstorm, or there's a snowstorm, or whatever happens, just know that things are going to happen. Be prepared for that, and that's just part of the adventure. You can either let that thing totally ruin your trip, or you can roll with it and just be like, hey, this is going to be something that we're going to write about in our journals, or we're going to tell our kids about, we're going to tell our grandkids about, and know that you're writing the chapter book of your life, and it's okay that things are not going to go to plan, because they're not. We're just going to count that as part of the adventure. Another thing I'll mention is acquiring maps of the area and starting to assemble like a trip plan of the locations that you're going to visit is critical. Doing as much research as possible before the trip is really going to set the tone for your trip. Let's say you're going to Utah, or you're going to go to Idaho, or you're going to go to California. How are you going to plan these routes out? You don't want to, spend all this time and spend all this money and then just get there and wing it, because you may never even be able to find anything to ride, and you might end up riding down some dirt road for 4 hours and not having any good time, and you find out later that there was, like, 5 miles away, there was the most epic, single track trails or something in the whole world, and you just didn't know how to get there because you didn't start out with the right planning. So I would say acquire maps of the area that you're going to go to, and doing as much research as possible before you get there to familiarize yourself with the area. That's going to be better. Another way you can do this, and I've done this a number of times, is we've got a guy in our group that loves to do this trip planning, and he's a little bit ahead of me in dirt bikes in some of these areas. And so he's got, he's been to some of these places before, and then he does the research. So my question is, or another suggestion is there someone that that's been to this general location before that can lead you on the trail and not waste a bunch of time? That would be huge. If not, maybe look for a tour company that offers tours in that area that you could leverage their information. And maybe if you're doing a 4-day trip in that area, maybe the first 2 days of the trip, you're using that tour company and you're riding those areas, and you're also picking their brains about, like, hey, other riding spots. And if you're already on the tour with them, they're going to be a lot more apt to just say, hey, yeah, so on your next day, here's what I would do if I were you. Go down here. I'll send you a GPS pin, and you can, stage in that area. You could get on Facebook groups or things like that and see if people will give you pins of places to start for these trips and stuff. And make sure that you're obeying all the laws. Make sure you're staying on public land. You're not going on private land. If you are going on private land, you obviously need permission from the landowner and that type of thing. But if you can do a lot of, this planning and trip prep in the beginning, it'll make things a lot better. And if you do have someone that's willing to, lead you or guide you or something, that would be really, really helpful, because then you're not wasting so much time. Oh, should we go here? Should we go there? And you can do a lot more riding if you have someone that's experienced that way. So look for someone that can guide you or lead you along the way. Here's my thought on groups. Like large groups, I'm not a super big fan of really large groups if you're going to do a multi-day trip. This is just me, but I feel like if you have a large group, the larger the group, that means the more waiting that you do. Maybe you're just waiting for everyone to get back together, because a lot of times on these trips there's going to be a lot of dust, and so you've got 9 guys and they're spread out over 10 minutes, and you get to like a fork in the road and everyone bunches up and waits for all the other guys. What you can do in those cases to make it faster is, like, you've got one guy in the lead and he decides there's a fork in the trail and it's going left or it's going right. He goes left and he waits only until the very next guy gets to him, and then he takes off. And then that second guy will wait there for the next guy, and they show each person, just, okay, we went this way. That way you don't have everyone all there together. The problem with that is if there is, if you get too spread out and things, then you get like an injury or something. You got people spread all over the mountain, and it's just harder to keep the groups together, and you do a lot more waiting. The larger your group size, the more probability that somebody's going to have a problem. Maybe somebody's clutch goes out, maybe somebody gets a flat, all these types of things. The more people you have in the group, just the more waiting around you do. Now, that isn't the reason not to have a big group. It's, because maybe you're just a big social butterfly. I'm not. So for me, a riding group of 3 to 5 people is pretty much perfect, because you don't have so much waiting around. There's still, strength in numbers in case there is an emergency or something like that. You've got extra knowledge with you, but you want to make sure that the abilities of the group are fairly close. Everyone doesn't have to be on the same level, but I think it's just a little bit nicer if most of the people are kind of on an even-ish playing field, and that way you're not riding stuff that's like way over the head of one person and you're constantly waiting for that one person, because then that can put that person in shame, and they're worried the whole time and they're not having fun because they feel like they're holding everyone up. And trust me, I've been that guy so many times where it's just like I feel totally out of my element, and I'm not as good as the other guys, and it's not fun for anyone. So if you can keep your general abilities close, it'll be better. 3 to 5 is perfect for me. And that's just a thought there. Here's another question. Are you going to stay in one base camp for this trip? And that base camp could be a hotel. That base camp could be a house or a cabin. Or it could be your camp. Maybe you're actually camping. Are you going to have this one base camp and drive to these kind of like outpost rides, these staging areas? Or are you going to like pick up your entire camp each day? And these are things that you need to figure out in advance. And if the distances are too far, then you might have to pick up, move to a different hotel. Like, we're going to come to this city this one time, and we're going to ride 2 days here, and then we're going to move, we're going to drive another hour to the south or to the north or east or west. We're going to stay in this other place now, and we're going to do, stage from there. These are questions that you need to figure out. And know that you're probably going to have to do some driving. If you're spending a multi-day trip, you're going to have to do some driving, because you generally won't want to ride the same thing over and over and over. Maybe you will, but you'll probably need to drive a little bit each day to these different places. Okay? Let's talk about rest, hydration, and food. These things are paramount on these multi-day trips. So getting prior rest before the trip, being in as good a shape as you can possibly be, is going to help. Getting your cardio up, getting your seat time on your bike. The best thing you can do is go out and ride your bike multiple times, in the weeks leading up to this trip, to make sure that everything is dialed in. You're comfortable with your stuff. Don't go with like all this brand new gear. Don't go with brand new boots. Make sure that the boots work for you. Get them broken in, helmet. Sometimes you can get away with a brand new helmet if you know exactly what size you need and stuff. But some of these things that are going to fit tighter, like helmets and boots and stuff, don't go with brand new boots. Make sure that you've got that stuff kind of broken in, and you know exactly what it feels like, and it's not going to be causing blisters or pains or some of these other things for you. And it's important to rest during the trips. So on each evening, if you're going to, if you go ride your dirt bike all day long, I wouldn't then plan to go to a club that night and just like stay out all night, because you're going to need some rest. You're going to need a lot of rest in these multi-day trips because you're going to be spending so much energy and so many calories out there on the trails or whatever it is that you want to have plenty of rest. So schedule downtime in the evenings where you're not doing a ton of stuff and just letting your body recuperate from the hell that you put it through the day before and the hell that you're going to put it through in the next day. And I say hell only because it's a lot of stress on your body. It's awesome. Some of the parts of riding are hell, but you get what I mean. You're going to put your body through a lot of stress. You also want to hydrate very well. So I'll take like a 3-liter water bladder with me, and I've learned that I just need to fill those things all the way up. And most of the time I come back with a lot of water left over, but sometimes I don't. And every once in a while I've come almost, I've got buddies that will drink 3 liters of water or more on these day trips. The point is, when you're out there in the wild and it's an unfamiliar environment and everything, just pack your water bladder all the way full. I know it makes your pack heavy, but hey, water sustains your life, and you need that. And then food. When you're recharging your body at the end of the day, make sure you get plenty of calories and stuff in at night. Fatty foods are good when you're out there on these rides. And this isn't gonna be a lesson on nutrition. I'm just saying that make sure you're getting enough calories, enough energy back in your body each night on these multiple day trips. Do you have and we talked about this a little bit before, and obviously all the things that I've got that I said for the day trips, they also would apply down here to a multi-day trip as far as doing a level set of all your gear. But I want to talk about it a little bit more here, because what I want to say is, do you have the ability to contact emergency services? This is going to be paramount because a lot of things can happen on a multi-day trip. So someone in that group should be carrying either a spot tracker or a Garmin InReach tracker or some other way to contact emergency services in the event of an emergency. I've had situations twice where we had to call emergency services. One time where we had to call Life Flight to get somebody helicoptered out. And another time we just had to have an ambulance come or sheriffs come and pick up a guy that had a punctured lung and whatever, some other broken collarbone, punctured lung, all this stuff. The helicopter Life Flight out, the guy had broken his leg and tore up his knee, and he couldn't get out. We were in the backcountry. Anyway, let's have a way to contact emergency services. Let's also bring a full set of riding gear for each day of riding. I'm not talking, you don't have to have, if you're going to do 4 days, you don't have to have 4 pairs of boots or 4 helmets. But I'm talking about, if you're going to do 4 days of riding, let's bring 4 riding pants and at least 4 jerseys, and have base layers for each of those days so that you can start out each day clean. Now, if you're doing if you get like a house or like a VRBO or a cabin or something, you might be able to actually wash clothes during the trip. And we like to do that too. If we can, I bring all the gear with me. I bring 4 sets of gear for a 4-day riding thing. But if I have the ability during, at night to do some laundry, I'll do that, just because I'm generally not doing a lot of other things. I mean, I might be checking emails and stuff, but it's easy for me to just, as we're sitting around a campfire outside, making s'mores or something, you could throw some laundry in the washing machine and just wash it. And it's just less things you have to do when you get home and off your trip. I will suggest that you bring an extra helmet. So if you're doing a multi-day trip, if you can and you can afford it, bring an extra helmet. You never know. You might smash your head on something on day 1 or day 2. And these helmets are really only made for one major impact. So if you can afford it, bring a second helmet. Even if it's your old helmet, maybe you didn't wear out your old helmet, but you just got a new helmet because whatever reason, bring your old helmet with you so you got a backup. Same thing with boots. Bring your old boots, bring a pair of backup boots. Usually you don't destroy boots, but what can happen is your boot can get completely full of water and you might not have the ability to dry it out. If you do have like boot dryers or something, you could bring those. I don't own them. Maybe I should, but I just bring an extra pair of boots, and that way we'll give an extra day for my wet boots to dry out or whatever. So I'll do that. Question: are you going to camp and do the cooking right there with you, or are you going to stay in a cabin hotel? We talked about that a little bit before, but if you're going to do the camping, that means you're going to have a little bit of extra trip prep, because you're going to need to bring coolers and food and a way to cook that food and all those things. A lot of times we've spent so much energy on these trips that I generally only do cook my own food when I'm camping with my family. Because when I'm camping with my family, I don't do the long, hard, gnarly rides. And so we do camp and bring all our food with us if I'm going with my family. But when I'm going with the guys, these trips and these riding expeditions are generally a lot more grueling. And the last thing I want to do at the end of the day is cook food. And so we'll generally go into town somewhere and eat out or something. Now, let's get into some of the things that we're going to bring with us as far as, extra things that we would want to bring. I typically would like to pack a big tub full of spare parts and tools. So this isn't going to be an all-inclusive list, but let me just give you an idea of some of the things that I would want to put, that I do put in that tub of tools. So shop towels, full toolboxes. I'll bring 2 different toolboxes, like, with hammers and like pliers and wire cutters and these types of things, and then all my sockets and end wrenches and Allen wrenches and all of that stuff. So, and then I look through some of the more dirt bike related tools that I don't use as a daily basis. I'll put those in there, like seal pullers and different things, and I'll bring an extra set of grips for my bars. I'll bring extra levers for the bikes. I'll bring clean air filters that I've pre-oiled and placed in Ziploc bags. I'll bring engine coolant. I'll bring like gasket sealer or gasket maker. You can get it in the little tubes and stuff in case you have some emergency happen. Contact cleaner, nitrile gloves for working on the bike, extra grease, torque wrench, jets for a carburetor if you need to do that, if you need to do a little tuning when you get to the place that you're going. Spark plugs on, for an emergency. I've never actually fouled a spark plug ever on a modern big bore bike, and I've been riding since 2010. I've been riding two strokes since 2012. I've never fouled a plug, but I still bring them with me in case. I'll bring tire irons. Sometimes I'll even bring a tire changing stand. I'll bring a breaker bar for the rear axle. That way, if I'm just doing some tire changes or something, it's easy. I'll bring like a counter shaft seal kit sometimes. This was a thing on the older KTMs. 2017 and newer, I don't think I've had a counter shaft seal go out. But before 2017, I would lose counter shafts and have them leak. So I would bring a counter shaft seal kit, master link for my chain, 2-stroke oil, motor oil filters, extra hand guards, even a bolt kit. It's a good idea to have an entire bolt kit for your bike in that big, large tool tub. These are things, because you don't want to get out there and have something break and not have a way to fix it, So those are some of the things that I would put in that tool tub. The thing is, you just want to look around your bike, find out what parts you're most likely to break or lose or whatever, and have a plan for those. You don't want to ruin your whole riding trip just because you didn't bring some little thing that you had sitting around at the house. Another thing that I'll do is I'll bring a spare wheel set or tires and tubes. So the spare wheel set is nice. Nice. 1 second. I got to get a drink here. Yes. I know a spare wheel set is expensive, but it's really nice because then you've got the bearings already there. You've got a sprocket already on that. You've got the brake disc on both front and rear. And it's expensive, but now you've got an extra set of tires right there on that. If somebody has a problem, if they bend a brake rotor or something, you can just swap over and put that one on the bike, or you can. It just makes things really nice. It gives you that extra peace of mind. Can solve a lot of problems if you can bring a spare wheel set. But at the very least, bring an extra set of tires, front tire and a rear tire. That way, if somebody has a problem where they actually destroy a tire, I like to, if I'm going on a multi-day trip, I like to have new or nearly new tires on my bike because I just want, the best performance. But every once in a while, you can shred a tire to the point where it's completely unusable, like you slash the sidewall or something, which can and does happen. So it's nice to have some spares like that. Yeah, here's another idea. Can you bring a spare bike with you? So not everyone can do that. In my situation where I've got generally a bunch of bikes because I'm cycling through them all the time, and bikes to me are business assets. So I'll have usually multiple at a time. I will bring an extra bike. And sometimes I'll bring 2 extra bikes just in case something happens. You can use it for parts, or you can just be like, okay, I broke this on that bike. I'm going to ride this other bike the rest of the week. Not everyone's going to be able to do that, but a lot of times what will happen is if we go on a multi-day trip, we'll usually have 3 or 4 people in the truck, and we'll take 5 or 6 bikes with us, and so we basically usually have 2 extra bikes. That's because I've been fortunate, and I'm doing this dirt bike channel thing here for a living, and so having these, they're business assets for me. But also, a lot of times my riding buddies will also have a backup bike. Maybe it's a buddy bike or whatever, but it's a backup bike in the trailer in case something happens, you know. That way, if you have cascading problems on a bike that you either can't fix or don't want to fix, you don't have to, and you can just use the backup bike. So it's a good thing to have if you have the ability to do that. An enclosed trailer. I love my enclosed trailer. I have a 21-foot V-nose trailer that's basically like a snowmobile trailer. It has a V-nose, and it has a door in the front and a door in the back that you can ride up. You can load from either side, and there's a man door on the side of the trailer that you can use. I love that bike. I've got E-Track on the side of it, on the walls, and then I have the Easy Chocks from motoprohq.com. I have links for those for you where you can get a discount on that, and that way you can just organize the trailer really, really nice. I've also got some cabinets in there and some hooks to hang things up, hang your clothes up and stuff as you gear up. It's nice to be able to gear up inside of a trailer like that too. It makes it warmer when it's super windy, and if it's hot, it gives you some shade. So I love my enclosed trailer for these multi-day trips. Gives you peace of mind, because you can lock things in there and it's not visible to people. And it gives me in there, I can load 6 bikes and still have plenty of room for gear, camping equipment, parts, coolers, and anything else that I need to bring. So I love having that enclosed trailer. You got to think about being able to have one of those or rent one of those if you're going to go on a multi-day trip. Bring all the gas cans that you're going to need for the whole trip. This is what I like to do. That way we don't have to worry about, can we get the right octane or whatever. If you're going to bring some race gas or you're going to mix gas or whatever, it's just nice to know that you've got that kind of prepared in advance. You have to, but generally you've got a back of the truck. So with me, I've got all my bikes and my gear locked up in the trailer, and then I'll just put these gas cans in the back of the truck so it doesn't smell like a fuel tanker in there when you go open the door. There's still a little fuel smell in there because you've got bikes in there. But anyway, so enclosed trailer, I like that. Here is an idea. So another thing that we'll do a lot of times is we'll bring a pressure washer with us on these multi-day trips. That way, if things get really, really muddy and you just want to clean some of that mud off, you can do that. Or let's say you have something break on the bike. I hate working on a dirty bike. It's one thing if I just have to do some little teeny thing, but if I'm going to do anything like, like let's say one day I ride the bike and it's running way too rich and I want to jet the bike better, lean it out for the next day, I want to spray the thing off so that when I'm taking my carburetor apart, I'm not like dropping dirt down there. So it's not just to have the bikes look good. It's because I hate working on bikes when they're dirty. So you might want to bring a pressure washer in the back of the truck and a hose. And maybe you won't have that ability, but if you're going to some cabin or some house or whatever that's going to have, a irrigation water or a hose spigot or whatever, then you could use your pressure washer and clean things off. Also, another thing that we'll do on these rides is we'll bring kind of sandwich, lunch meat type stuff with us so that at the beginning of the day, we eat our breakfast, whether it's at a restaurant or maybe we cook pancakes or something at the house that we're staying at or whatever, ham or sausage or something. We will bring sandwich material so that we can basically just create lunches and throw them in our riding packs for that day. We'll throw sandwiches in there. We'll throw energy bars in there, whatever it is, just to give you that little bit of kick of sugar for the day. And we'll take that stuff with us and we'll prepare that in the morning before we go and throw that in our riding packs before the ride each day. So that's a good one. Here's another really good one to just think about. Pace yourself, guys. Pace yourself. You're going to be out here for 4 days. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. I constantly have to remind myself not to ride as hard as I can, especially on day one, because you're so excited. You're jazzed up to be there. You've just driven to this cool area. You've been in the truck for 6 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours. You slept overnight. Now you're ready to roll, and you're so excited. Don't blow your wad too early. You don't want to like wear yourself out on day one. So especially on day one, figure out a way to just dial it down a little. Don't turn it up to 10. Don't go past 7, I would say, on that scale of 1 to 10, because you got many days in front of you and you don't want to just Also blisters. Like if you're going so hard and going balls out and everything, you can be holding onto the bar so tight and everything, you can give yourself blisters. And then the rest of the trip, it sucks because you're like trying to tape your hands or something. And that's another one, is bring like athletic tape or some other way to like tape your hands in case you do get blisters, or tape some other area of your body. You might even want to bring baby powder for chafing. I don't know. One of the things that I have done for chafing is Desitin. It's the baby powder. It's the baby, it's like zinc paste or whatever you put on babies' bums when, they get a little diaper rash. If you have a rash in an area, unseen area where the sun don't shine, you could bring a little Desitin. This is a trick I've learned because we've got so many kids. I've got 4 kids, and you'd be amazed what a little Desitin applied in the right area can do for your comfort level. So just put that in your book. So yeah, don't pace yourself. Just go slow in the beginning, right? Day 3, day 4, you can start to push it. Your body will then tell you how much you can push it, because you're going to be a little bit sore. And this goes back to trying to be in the best shape that you can before you get out on that riding trip. But don't blow it too much. We mentioned it before, but carry more water in your pack than normal. Fill that water bladder all the way up. And then I always carry ibuprofen, because especially on these longer day trips, you're going to bump yourself. You're going to hit something. It's nice to be able to take a bit of ibuprofen in the middle of the day. I don't take ibuprofen hardly ever, but a lot of times when I'm out on a ride, I will. As I get older and older, obviously things can swell up. And if you have it, you bump your knee on something or whatever, or your elbow, it's nice to be able to control the swelling somewhat. So I'll bring ibuprofen with me out there on the rides and make sure that I'm hydrating, properly. We already talked about the athletic tape. I wrote that down. So you're on a multi-day trip. Do you have a way to charge your batteries for like your GoPro, your Sony camera, whatever it is, your drone? Obviously, you're going to need extra batteries, but on a multi-day trip, you're going to need to charge that stuff. So make sure you pack something that you can charge your batteries up. Another thing I like to do is I like to bring a laptop, a computer, so that I can back up the footage off my SD cards every day. Because to me, I'll go out on a riding trip, and these riding trips are actually business trips for me, but they're memory trips for everyone else. And you want to be able to you could lose your camera, or you could have an SD card failure, or you could fill up your SD card the middle of day 2, and now you can't do any more filming. It's just nice to be able to dump that footage off down onto your laptop that you're leaving at the truck, in the hotel, or at the house that you're staying at. And that way you've got a backup copy of it, and you can dump the card off every night and not fill it up. So that's something that I will do. Also, you want to carry some cash for emergencies. Sometimes if you're in an emergency situation, somebody's not going to take your credit card or your debit card, so it's good to have some cash always and forever in an emergency situation. I generally don't have the cash with me on my bike, but I at least have it, in the truck or in my pack or somewhere. Here's another question. Do you have the ability to change a flat on your truck? And do you have the ability to change a flat on your trailer? How are you going to lift your trailer off the ground to change a tire? I carry something in my trailer all the time. It stays in the trailer, and it's basically this thing that I can, because I've got a tandem axle trailer, it's this thing that you can drive one of the wheels up on, and then it'll lift the other wheel, the other wheel that's right there. So I don't have to jack them up. I can just use the truck, either pull it on or back it up onto this little easy wheel puller thing that allows you to then pull the wheel off the trailer in the event of a flat. Here's another thing, guys. Trailer tires are not supposed to wear out. With trailer tires, you run them anywhere from 2 to 4 years, and then you replace them. They do not wear out. They sit so long that the belting and the banding can break down in them, and you will blow them. Most trailer tires are not rated for over 65 miles an hour. Do not go 80 miles an hour down the road. In fact, a lot of them are only rated to 55 miles an hour. So I just try to set my cruise at 65 and just leave it there, okay? Because you will blow one of those. And I was just on my last riding trip that I was coming back with my trailer. I told Tyler a couple times, I'm like, hey, I bought this trailer like 3 years ago. It had the stock tires on it. I haven't done anything with the tires. I need to replace them like pronto. We pull into a service station, and I had told him that. And then the guy, we're in a gas station getting gas and eating Burger King or whatever. They had a service station right there. And one of the guys that's working in the service station that was, just looking around. He's like, hey, is that your trailer right over there? Did you notice that bulge on the inside of your tire? And we go out there and there's a bulge on the inside of the tire. I'm showing cord and it's like, dude, this is time. So I just had them put new tires on my trailer all the way around, all 4 tires. So just keep an eye on your trailer tires. It's going to help you down the road. Don't run them for more than 3 or 4 years. If it's 5, 6 years old, it doesn't matter how much tread is left on those things. They are done. You can generally find the actual manufacture date printed, stamped into the tire. It will have a month and a week and a year. So if you look in there somewhere and it says like 37 of 37-18, what that means it was made in the 37th week of 2018. Okay, so you can find that on basically any tire. If you look closely enough, you'll find it. And it might say, 0202. That means it was made in the second week of 2002. So that tire is obviously toast. If it's anything older than 5 years, I would just replace the sucker. It is not worth it. Trailer tires are not that expensive, and they don't last like car tires because they're not being driven around. They break down because they've always got weight on one side. They're not being used enough. So that's my soapbox on tires. It might be a good idea for you to bring a cooler in the trailer just for drinks. So that's what we'll do a lot of times. Most of the time when I go on these multi-day rides with my riding buddies, we don't have a ton of food with us. We have some sandwich stuff and things, but we'll have a cooler that just has drinks in there, water, maybe Pepsi, Coke, whatever for the end of the day, just to kind of have a nice drink when you get back from these rides, because you're not going to be able to eat probably for a little while. It's nice to just have a soft drink or whatever. And that would be one thing. And then my last tip here is just slow down, guys. Slow down and enjoy the scenery. I am calling the kettle black here because, we do look at the scenery a lot, but not as much as we maybe should. We're just out there trying to get as much miles down as we can and prove that we're, some A rider or whatever it is. You've spent all this time, you spent all this money coming to these new places. Maybe slow down just a little bit. Take some extra time to stop and smell the roses because you've got some amazing terrain, some amazing scenery out here in some of these places, and just slow down and take it all in, take a deep breath and enjoy it. It's a privilege to ride dirt bikes, and this is something that eventually we won't be able to do. Eventually we'll get old and fat or we'll have some other health complication or something will hit. So when you're going on these riding trips, just know that this is a privilege and this is something that you could lose. So be grateful for it. Sometimes they're not going to go to plan, like I mentioned, but man, what an amazing thing it is to be able to ride a dirt bike and go on some of these trips and see some of the sights and smell the smells and feel the exhilaration and push yourself and sweat and cry and laugh and cuss and bond with your buddies or bond with your sons or bond with your daughter or your wife or whoever it is that you're going with. And it's just really a privilege. And I can't wait to do more of these riding trips in the future. When I get back from a riding trip, I show my family some of the footage, some of the pictures we took, some of the videos we took, and then I turn to my boys and I'm like, boys, I'm going to go on these trips with you. I'm going to take you guys there, and we're going to do this. And the looks on their faces, they get a smile on their face, and I get a smile on my face. When I'm in the middle of some of these rides, I just start thinking, I'm like, I am going to bring my sons here. I want them to see this. I want my family to experience this. And I make those mental notes of like, okay, I got to come here with them. I got to come here with my boys, with my daughter. If that happens, if she decides she wants to come to these places, even my wife, if she decides to want to get into this and start coming to some of these places, it'll be a blast. I know my boys will, and I can't wait to do some of those multi-day trips with those dudes, with Connor and Case. So that's what I've got for you guys. Again, we talked about, just the shorter day trips and then the multi-day trips. I know this is a little bit longer podcast unless I have a guest. A lot of times my podcasts are only about 30 minutes unless I have a guest, but I had just so much to cover. So hopefully you guys took some, had some value from this. Maybe you got some ideas. If you have some more ideas about things like this, things you might want to prep for, send me an email, Kyle@DirtBikeChannel. Also, if you have podcast topic ideas, send it to Kyle@dirtbikechannel.com. That's the best way to get a hold of me. Again, please Thank you. Please and thank you. Please use my links for Rocky Mountain ATV if you're going to shop with them. I have them down in usually the podcast descriptions, but you can also find it over on my website in the parts links place, or any of my YouTube videos. It's usually in the description of those videos. So that's what I've got for you guys. Also, keep in mind that we will be doing a Dirt Bike Channel sweepstakes, another one here. It'll be starting on April 15th. At that time, I'll have shirts and hats and hoodies and gear and jackets and tie downs and toe straps and even wall flags and eventually maybe tire pumps that you can purchase. Every $5 gets you entered into the sweepstakes to win a dirt bike, and I will be giving away three dirt bikes. We're going to give away the 2020 Beta 300RR Race Edition, the 2020 YZ250 FX, and my 2019 KTM 300XC WTPI. All of those bikes are going to be given away. Hope everybody is okay with this coronavirus pandemic thing. Yes, it was over 50 minutes before I even mentioned coronavirus. Thank you very much. You're welcome. And that's all I've got for you guys. Okay, let's leave a single track. Thanks.